teammates. Welcome to the LiveWELL podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jen Collins.
And I'm Seth Christopher. Welcome to the Well.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to our podcast today. Seth, we're still talking about nutrition.
We are. It is still March, and we are marching forward to the end of Nutrition Month, but we still got a lot in store for teammates today.
We have a really fun show for everybody. It's going to be a little bit different. We have two of our teammates from LiveWELL with us today who are going to be giving us somewhat of a nutrition panel. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, we've got a lot to cover, so why not just jump in?
Seth, let's introduce our guest that we have on today. I'll start with Jill Ashburner. She is a certified wellness coach, and she's certified in plant-based nutrition and sports nutrition and has an overall passion for healthy eating. Jill has worked with LiveWELL for 9 years, and she enjoys coordinating efforts with the healthy food environment and nutrition initiatives across the system, including cafe vending assessments, education opportunities, and resources.
We're joined by a fourth member of the LiveWELL team today, Tara Cox. Tara Cox is a senior HR consultant with LiveWELL. She's a registered dietitian by training with a master's of public health who has had a varied career working in nutrition education, community research, and food marketing. She spent half of her career focused on corporate wellness and has a 360-degree view of wellness, having worked as a health coach, internal wellness director, and external wellness consultant. She loves helping make healthy choices sustainable. Tara, welcome to the Well.
Thanks, Seth. Happy to be here.
Jill, welcome to the Well.
Thank you, Seth. We're excited to talk about nutrition today.
All right, well, lot to cover. Let's get started with some fast facts. What do you all think?
Let's roll.
Sounds good.
Fast fact. The dietary guidelines for Americans recommend the following daily intake. Stay with me, teammates. 2.5 cups of vegetables, 2 cups of fruit, 6 ounces of grains, 3 cups of dairy, 5.5 ounces of protein foods, and 27 grams of oil. No partridge in a pear tree, but a lot to think about here. So this is the recommendation, but we've got some really great thoughts on the topic today. Tara, maybe you can give us a little bit more description, some nuances. It's not just as simple as, hey, go get 2 cups of fruit. Hey, get 6 ounces of grains. You know, what exactly does that mean?
Sure, Seth. If you've lived long as I have, you've probably seen several versions of the dietary recommendations. When I was in school, there were 4 food groups, and now there are 5. And when I started my training as a dietitian, it was in the form of a pyramid. And that has evolved now to my plate. So it looks like a plate that's divided, and it shows you the proportion of the different food groups that should be on that plate. So, and that is changed for a reason. It's because it's based on the most recent dietary nutrition research. So they change it every 5 years or so based on what the current research shows. And during my time, I think that the focus on plant-based foods has definitely increased. So we're focused on vegetables, not just getting in vegetables, but getting in a variety of vegetables from different colors and different groups. It also includes beans and peas and lentils in that vegetable section. So encouraging people who are not vegetarians to eat those protein-rich plant foods as well. And you'll notice that grains, the focus is on getting in whole grains. At least half of your grains should be whole. And that is because all of these plant foods have very important fiber that helps with digestion, helps keeping your gut healthy, and that has an impact on your whole health. And then you'll notice too that there are some limits on here as well. We've learned that you're supposed to limit not only fat, saturated fat, but also added sugars. Added sugars can have a negative impact on the diet. So that's an addition that you've probably seen in the most recent versions of the dietary guidelines.
I have a fast fact for you, Tara, and Seth, and Jennifer.
I like fast facts.
Did you know that 90% of Americans get double the amount of protein they need, but only half of the fiber that they need?
Interesting.
Yeah, so maybe we can work on flipping that around a little bit and getting teammates to really focus more on fruits and vegetables. So that, Tara, just like you were discussing how that's so important, it's such an important piece to the My Plate section there, is to really get more a variety of fruits and vegetables, because that's going to up your fiber intake.
That is really good information. This is a very robust conversation. I love it. Sounds like we need to really start working on ways to diversify our diet. And Terry, you pointed out some really great things, not just supporting the current recommendations, but also thinking about avoiding some of those saturated fats and extra sugars in our diets that might negate any positive gains we make. So.
And it makes your plate look prettier too when you have lots of colors on there.
Is that a My Plate reference, Jill?
Maybe.
All right. Fast fact. It's been estimated that approximately 40% of people have tried a fad diet at one point or another in their lifetime. Interestingly, a study published in JAMA using the NHANES survey noted the number of Americans attempting to lose weight through dieting has increased linearly year over year. However, researchers also stated that the cohort trend of weight gain and BMI also climbed linearly. So again, this was a cross-sectional survey. You can't necessarily assess causality, but what we see is that there are trends in the number of people that are trying to lose weight through dieting, but also we're seeing the weight trends go up as well. So this is interesting. I know when we think about fad diets, we think about dieting in general, there's a lot of confusing information. Jill, Tara, you all put some really good points into our first fact, but we have seen over the years as things have changed, it can get a lot more confusing. Sometimes people will try different things, sometimes things stick, sometimes things don't. Jill, you've mentioned more of a plant-based diet, especially here recently. I know you've got a lot of great information there, but what seems to be some of the big things that you've found to help people to be successful, to maintain, instill, keep their diets going when they're thinking about not just losing weight, but just being healthier overall?
I think one of the biggest things is to maybe not focus on the label, like not committing to a label of being vegan or vegetarian or keto or whatever. It's just looking at, there's bits and pieces of all these different diets that work for people, and maybe just taking bits and pieces and putting it all together into whatever works for you, because ultimately you need to figure out something that is going to improve your health and something that you can sustain for a lifetime, but something that's also satisfying, because if it's not satisfying, we're not going to do it. We're not going to stick with it. So kind of getting a nice marriage of all three of those things together is, something that will help people really stick with it.
So what I hear you say is it needs to be personalized, individualized, and positive. We talk about diets so much where it's restrictive and we're cutting something out, but it may be a change or adding something in, like you mentioned, the fiber.
Exactly. Yeah. People, our minds go much better to adding things in, like you said, versus restricting or saying that I can't have this or I can't have that. And that's one thing to be very cautious of when you're looking at diets, is any diet that eliminates an entire food group, that's usually a red flag.
And it seems like one of the most consistent things or themes that we hear about people who are successful with, call it a diet, but changing their lifestyle, taking in the right amount of nutrients over the long haul, is that they have some sense of structure, and they're also getting that sense of satisfaction from success. So, kind of breeds itself. And I think that we offer that service through our LiveWELL health coaches to help kind of balance and provide some guidance. And just there's a lot of other LiveWELL resources available we'll get into later, but I know that's always a big one, is just having the right coaching, getting the right mindset to taking it on.
Exactly.
We have a program that we're offering right now, Jill, right? Our Weight Watchers program. Can you take a minute and kind of talk about that, what's available to teammates?
Sure. I mean, as we talk about diets that are, lifestyle changes over the time, like looking at, Tara was referring back to how my pyramid has evolved over time. Weight Watchers is one that's been around for years and years. Most people know that, are familiar with the word Weight Watchers. They've actually, in the last year or so, gone to just WW. That's how they're identified now. So we have a partnership with them, a soft partnership with them. So if you go to the LiveWELL website, you'll see some information there on how you can register using the Atrium code. There's a little bit of a discount, but we also are promoting through Yammer some of the different promotions that come along throughout the series and different series that they offer, different fun things that they can do. So.
And I want to go back to something that you mentioned kind of in passing, but I think it's super important. You said lifestyle change as aversion to diet, right? So some of it comes down to changing our mindset, and it's not a diet. I'm going to do this for a month or 3 months to get ready for spring and then go back. It's all about lifestyle change. And I think if we can change that mindset and talk about adding foods in, eating new things. You mentioned lentils. I mean, some of our teammates may be like, what the heck's a lentil? Like, that's a powerful food, right? And, that there's a lot of stuff that our teammates may not know, different foods that they can put in, but that this is a lifestyle, not a quick one-shot diet.
Definitely. Yeah. And that's why it's so important to, find something that you're going to stick with forever.
I love that.
And then you just tweak it as you go.
Because we change. Things change.
We do.
I love that. All right, let's move into our next section, which is Mythbusters. So myth number 1, Jill, I'm going to have you help me out with this one. The myth is too much sugar causes diabetes. Do you have a truth for us?
Well, the truth is, if you don't have diabetes, eating sugar is not going to cause diabetes. But what does increase your risk is, just being overweight, inactivity. Sometimes it's if you've got some family history that can increase your risk there. But actually just eating sugar does not increase your risk for diabetes. Sort of more all around, you want to cut back on just empty calories altogether. Again, just focusing on that fruit and vegetables and just getting the right balance there.
That's what diabetes is, one of those things that can kind of sneak up on a person, right? If you don't know your risk factors, you don't know what you're getting in, and the causality can maybe be a little blurry. But the best is, like you said, get active and watch what you're eating. Eat a healthy, fruitful, plentiful diet.
Yeah, and just, make sure to get your regular screenings as well. Making sure that you're getting your labs done and that you're aware of your hemoglobin A1C and your glucose levels.
Great. Let's go to myth number 2. You would never be given a keto or gluten-free diet by a physician or in the hospital. The truth is that the classic ketogenic diet is actually a special high-fat, low-carbohydrate diet that helps to control seizures in some people. Tara, I found this myth to be fascinating because I think this is a fairly new kind of finding, and I truly was like, what? This is amazing. So talk a little bit about this myth for us.
Yeah, so as most people know, the ketogenic diet today, they think of it as a low-carb weight loss solution, right? So the reality is that it's actually not that new. The ketogenic diet, as it's been used in a clinical setting, has been around since the 1920s. And it has been used to help children that are suffering from seizures better control their seizures, especially those that may not respond to medication. So, and even adults have had some success with using that diet to control seizures as well. It's not a cure. It may reduce the seizures that the person has by as much as 50%, but it is an option for people that maybe are not well controlled with medications or can't take medications. So, the way we see it in the media is not really how it's used in a clinical setting, but it does have a clinical application to it.
That is just, I just absolutely find that to be fascinating. And I like how you kind of mentioned the media. And so our teammates, I'm sure everyone's heard of keto nowadays, but this is just a more clinical take on it. And, I would suspect you'd recommend before someone just takes up keto, they talk to their physician.
Absolutely. And then anytime somebody makes a dietary change, they really should talk to a doctor, especially if they have any type of pre-existing health conditions. But then the way that we would initiate, or the way that somebody would initiate a ketogenic diet with somebody who's on seizures, they would actually be in the hospital and be monitored as they start that diet. So, something to consider. It's not something to really kind of take on your own if you don't have to.
What about gluten-free diets? We mentioned that too.
Yeah, so gluten-free diets, that's another popular one in the media these days. A lot of people believe that gluten is something that's going to cause them to bloat or gain weight, but it does have a clinical application for people that have celiac disease or a true gluten intolerance. A gluten-free diet would be something that they would choose to avoid, to help manage those conditions.
It's interesting that these two diets have clinical implications, but then have also been sort of, that clinical piece has been taken out and made mainstream. So really important for teammates who investigating any diet, like Tara said, follow back up with your physician.
And Tara, I'm curious in your research on this, and maybe it's not widely publicized. Are these long-term diet approaches in these clinical settings, or are they kind of short-term? Any context there?
For a gluten-free diet, it is a long-term diet. If they do not follow that diet, then there can be damage to their gut. So that's something that they really have to be on for life. For the ketogenic diet, I guess the length of it would be based on how well they respond. It's not an easy diet to follow, and compliance for people is sometimes hard long term. But if the benefit outweighs the challenges of trying to stick to the diet, then they may be on it for a long term. Obviously, with a restrictive diet like that, there may be some other discussions around supplements and things like that are not provided through the diet.
Let's go on to myth number 3. Jill, I'm excited to have you debunk this myth. This is one of my most favorite ones. Nighttime eating makes you fat. So we've heard that forever, haven't we?
And there's a couple of schools of thought here. There's actually no conclusive proof that late night eating causes you to gain weight. What it is known, though, is, if you think about just common sense, is if you eat a heavy meal, even at dinner time, your normal dinner time, and then you're going to bed, you're not active for those next couple hours, because typically you might be sitting on the couch binging on Netflix or catching up on your emails for the day. So we're not as active as we are throughout the day. But it kind of comes down to a total calories throughout the day. However, one of the things I think that happens is people, especially, that's why we want to shy away from dieting, because if we go through this restrictive phase throughout the day, well, what happens by the end of the day, we don't have that sense of satisfaction. Maybe we're not full, maybe we're hungry. And then we end up making some unhealthy choices. And then on top of that, we're not doing any activity after that and going straight to bed. So, it's kind of more of a total calories throughout the day, but it is better if you can, have your heavier, your more calorically dense meals earlier in the day, so that you're, active and kind of, working that out or working those calories off throughout the day.
Awesome. Yes, I love my cereal at night before I go to bed. That's my favorite thing to do. But I count it with my full calories. So that's the other piece, is accounting for your full calories for the day and not going over.
Well, and it's important too to think, like, are we just grabbing for that salty food or that sweet treat because it's a habit? or are we actually hungry? So, tapping into that intuitive eating, why are we choosing these foods at that certain time it's important to kind of get to the bottom of it there.
Love that. Seth, I have one more myth I'd like to give to our panel, if you're okay with that.
Let's bust this myth.
Okay. All smoothies and juices are healthy. Tara, bust this myth for us.
So I don't know if I want to call them unhealthy, but we have to remember that juice is really a concentrated sweet. I call it a concentrated sweet because if you think about, a glass of orange juice, it probably takes about 3 oranges to get like a nice 4 to 6 ounce glass of orange juice. So taking all of that wonderful sweetness in the orange and concentrating it into a juice form. However, you do get your vitamin C, you get some of the nutrients out of that fruit when you juice it. However, it would be better if you could just put the whole piece of fruit or put the whole fruit into a blender and blend it into a smoothie, because then you would get the fiber from that fruit as well. But yeah, the juice fast or the smoothies are really popular this time of year. I think during the springtime, people are always trying to hurry up and lose weight for the summer, right? So they can have that summer body ready. I would say, eat a healthy diet all year long, stay active all year long. And if you like smoothies or if you like juice, then you can incorporate that into a balanced diet. But try to, keep that fiber in there if you can. And I'd even say go one step further. If you're using it as a meal replacement, add a healthy protein and fat to it. So plant-based proteins like peanut butter, protein powders, and healthy fats like nuts and seeds, flax seeds. You can add that and get a little bit more nutrition for your smoothie.
No, that's a great point. Not only the calories, but the amount of sugar in some of these smoothies or these juices add up fast. I don't know if you all have ever flipped the label of some of these well-known healthy drinks, and you've seen 80 grams of sugar or 60 grams. It's a lot, and I'd imagine that certainly is more than most of us should be taking in on a daily basis, regardless of our activity level. But those things can sneak up on you fast when it comes to juices and to smoothies.
And a lot of people choose juices or smoothies because they're convenient, but how much more convenient can you get than a banana? Like, it comes in its own travel pouch, right? And there's something to that satisfaction of using your jaw and chewing, when you're eating fruits and vegetables versus just, slurping them through a straw. So
I love my smoothies, but I also love to eat my apples. So.
Oh, and what Jill's saying is true. There is actually some research to show that chewing does lead or help to add to a feeling of fullness or satiety and satisfaction when you have a meal.
And y'all mentioned fiber earlier. I can imagine this is another way to increase that fiber intake.
Definitely, especially if you're choosing things like apples and pears where you're eating the skins.
You heard it here first, teammates. Chew your food.
Yeah.
Yes.
And for people that don't like the taste of vegetables, I've heard a lot of people say that putting a couple of, handfuls of kale into a smoothie is a great way to kind of sneak that in as well.
It takes a little getting used to. I can tell from somebody who does it. I prefer spinach to arugula in my smoothies. Arugula is a little bitter. Kale is not too bad. But absolutely, a lot of times if you just grind it up so small, you can't even taste it. It's there.
Wow, such useful information, great conversation around myths and facts. Maybe let's spend the next few minutes really doing a deep dive into some other common diets that people might be really familiar with. So we talked about gluten-free and some of its clinical uses. We also talked about keto. A couple of the other diets out there right now, I think intermittent fasting is one of the more popular ones. Maybe Tara, Jill, maybe give us some context on, what exactly intermittent fasting is. And then, what are some of the applications that you've seen in some of the research and some of your experiences as a registered dietitian, Tara?
Well, I actually haven't used intermittent fasting in my practice in the past. It's fairly new, but the research shows, I guess, that when people go for a specific period of time during the day without anything to eat or drink other than water, they're able to lose a little bit more weight than if they were to eat throughout the day. And it also gives your body time to recover. So it's kind of a recovery and revitalizing period for your body. Most of the research has shown protocols that look for either a 12 to 16 hour fasting period. So that means you're reducing your eating period to between 8 and 12 hours in a 24-hour period. So if you are skipping lunch, it's just skipping lunch. It's not really intermittent fasting. But if you are strategically placing your meals so that you can have those dedicated hours of rejuvenation, then that would be considered intermittent fasting. There are also some protocols where you eat significantly less on a few days during the week. So there might be 2 or 3 days of the week where you only have 500 calories and the other days you eat as normal. And, you know, it's promising. It's something that I think we discouraged people from doing in the past. We always wanted people to eat regularly, you know, every few hours. But the research is starting to show that there may be some health benefits, and that's related to weight loss. I've seen studies on blood pressure and also on cancer prevention. So it's interesting. You know, the thing about nutrition is it's always changing.
Always changing. Research is always changing. I remember intermittent fasting was kind of coming up. They were still doing like rat studies when I was in the field. So it's interesting to see where it's come now. And based on your experience, it looks like there's a lot of different ways to do it, but there does appear to be some efficacy. But it's not a one size fits all. It probably isn't for everyone skipping meals if they're not used to that. So good context. All right, Jill, another common diet right now, or I keep saying the word diet, you know, you want to correct me here, way of eating, vegan. So tell us a little bit about, you know, vegan. What does it mean to be vegan or to eat vegan?
Yeah, so I think vegan, the word itself, probably scares a lot of people because it is like a pretty big commitment. People choose to go vegan, vegetarian, plant-based, whatever terminology you want to call it, for a variety of reasons. Some people do it for spiritual reasons. Some people do it for, you know, ethical or environmental reasons. But if somebody, you know, chooses to have a diet that doesn't include meat or any animal products, there's, you know, years and years of research on there that it shows how it can improve everything from heart disease to cancer risk to you know, blood pressure, all types of things. It can even reduce the amount of inflammation. So certain diseases that are related to inflammation, having those animal products really increases your risk there. So it's a great, it's certainly a great diet for the health benefits. Is it easy to follow? No, it's not, because it's easier than it has been in the past. There's a lot more options now for, you know, substitutes for meat and dairy. But you know, it's not easy. It's not the way that a lot of us were raised or, you know, learn how to eat. So again, it kind of goes back to what we said earlier, is not really identifying with one specific title or word. I like to say I eat predominantly plants. Does that mean I never eat chicken? No. I mean, but most of what I eat is plants. You know, some people will say there's the pescatarian where they eat fish, or lacto-ovo. I mean, there's a lot of different varieties there, but maybe just not committing to any one specific label, and just make your overall goal of reducing the amount of animal products that you can consume. Just by saying the word that I'm vegan or I'm a plant-based eater does not mean you're a healthy eater, because you can have a junk food vegan, because, you know, technically French fries are vegan, right? And Oreos, and there's a lot of vegan foods out there that are not what we would consider healthy. So yeah, it's just important to, you know, if you're gonna make that a lifestyle, just to not commit to such strict restrictions there.
So for a minute there, I liked where you were going with the French fries and the Oreos. No, just kidding. But yeah, I've actually, I've talked to a lot of people who have decided, New Year's resolution, or for whatever reason, they said, oh, I'm going to be vegan, but didn't do the research ahead of time. So then made the decision it's restrictive and didn't know how to do it. So they ate junk food because that was the easiest thing, or ate packaged foods. So I love that you sort of mentioned that vegan doesn't necessarily equal healthy all on its own.
Yeah, a lot of times once you make that claim and then somebody sees you in the cafeteria not having a hamburger, then
it's all over.
You've lost all your credit there.
A commitment, but like you said, I love this approach that we're encouraging teammates to take of one size doesn't fit all, not restrictive, do what feels right to you at the time that you're making some changes.
And that satisfies you at the end of the day, like you want to be healthy and satisfied.
So if you guys had to make one for each of you, if you had to make a recommendation to our teammates on making nutrition changes, not choosing a diet, making nutrition changes, what would be just one thing you could say to our teammates that they could get started tomorrow doing? Tara?
I would probably say the first thing to do is eat more plants. Whether that, more fruits, vegetables, more plant-based proteins, whole grains, and eat as many whole foods as possible. And you don't have to start out 100%. You may never get to 100%, but do a little bit more than what you're doing now and continue to build from that.
Well, Tara took the words right out of my mouth. So I'll say track your fiber. Yeah, track your fiber, see how much you're getting, and then see how you can make small steps to add a little bit to it each day.
So what's the recommended amount of fiber we should be getting?
Between 25 and 30 grams for most people. And that's one, thank you for bringing that up, because that's important to make sure that you don't do too much too fast. It's better to add just a little bit at a time.
And drink lots of water as you're
Absolutely.
Increasing that fiber. This has been fabulous. We thank you guys so much for coming on. You two have a wealth of knowledge on this topic. I hope our teammates have enjoyed the conversation. I thoroughly have enjoyed it, and I have notes. I've learned something today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
That was a great conversation. We went through so much information.
Yeah, you can see how our team meetings can be real challenging when we get into a topic we really enjoy. So a lot of fun conversation there. Really appreciate Jill and Tara making the time.
One of the things that I noticed and that I just love about talking with Tara and with Jill is the passion for the subjects that you can hear in their voice. They just take educating our teammates about nutrition. They take that personal. So I just want to make sure that we send our appreciation for having them on the show today and just thank them for this great information that they provided.
And you get the sense that, obviously, Jen, we're all part of LiveWELL, but you get the sense that they carry that sense of motivation to make an impact and make healthy eating sustainable and helping to make better choices readily available outside of every month, not just March. So it's always exciting and reinvigorating to be around.
Absolutely. Very great. Let's talk about what we learned today. Let's recap and draw this one to a close. So I think one of the things that we learned, or especially that I learned, is when it comes to choosing a plan, one size does not fit all. It is important to choose a plan that fits your needs and then be open to change as your needs change. Don't be stuck in just one plan and be just committed to that as if things in your life are changing. Also, before choosing a plan, it's very important to talk to your physician or to talk to a registered dietitian, especially if you have a chronic condition. As we talked about, you want to choose the right nutrition plan for you and your needs, and not everything is going to be right for you. So don't just grab one of those plans off the internet. Talk with your doctor, talk to a professional, and make sure you get connected with the right nutrition plan.
Great point, Jen. There are lots of diets out there, both the internet, social media. They all promise results. But what we've talked about today is that there's no one size fits all. There are some specific diets that work for certain instances, chronic conditions, some that don't. So I think the most important thing here is just like what you highlighted, having those conversations with your provider. Also, if you're on the LiveWELL benefit plan, taking advantage of medical nutrition therapy if it's applicable. And then, of course, engaging with the LiveWELL health coach, which is readily available to help you start to set those habits to make a sustainable change or to create some new opportunities for you to improve your eating habits. And as always, teammates, when we're talking about making nutrition changes, it's the same as exercise. Give yourself a little grace, but do a little bit more today than you did yesterday. Do a little bit more tomorrow than you did today, and help make the choices simple and exciting for you.
Our next podcast, we're going to be airing on March 18th, and we are going to be wrapping up National Nutrition Month. On that show, we're going to have a special guest, LaToya Mallard, and she is the story in the digital calendar this month. And she is going to talk to us all about the mobile food pharmacy. That's going to be an exciting show.
And don't forget to visit the LiveWELL website for more info on Nutrition Month and other great LiveWELL resources like In the Kitchen and Toned Up Tuesdays.
Our resources are listed at the end of the show, and we'll add links to the programs discussed today in the comments on our Streams channel.
Looking for more things LiveWELL? Not following our Streams channel yet? Search the Well on Streams in Office 365 or find us on the LiveWELL website to access all our content.
Thanks for listening to The Well today.
Stay safe
and live well.